Hello my fellow Neonatians and welcome back to the channel. On today's video we're going to be talking about how to make a 2D platformer in Construct 3, and this is going to be a part of a longer series where I go more in depth on specific mechanics and things like that. But for today's video we're just going to be focusing on the very basics of getting started making a 2D platformer in Construct 3. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Alright, so right here we just have some sprites that I have set up. There's nothing on them, they're just like very basic sprites. I do have the background having a bit of parallax. If you don't know how to do that, I'll be doing a tutorial on that pretty soon, but that's pretty much it. The character sprite has some animations, and this is basically all assets from a game that I'm currently working on, and I did a devlog on that if you haven't seen that already. That was my first video, I think. And so yeah, so basically what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go into the character and we're gonna add the platform behavior. All right, and then we're gonna go into the tile map and add the solid behavior so that the character can stand on it. And that's pretty much already a platformer, but we're going to tweak it. So right now, if we go and click on play, he'll kind of move, he can jump, but as you can see, he jumps a little too high and he moves too fast. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tweak the settings until we get it to where we like it. This is going to be completely dependent on your game, on your sprite size, on the type of art that you're doing. Because if you think about it, if you're doing because the speed is basically measured in pixels, right? So if you have a really high resolution sprite, 330 as the max speed might be like nothing. That might not do anything to your character. It might barely move it because you have such a large sprite that 330 pixels is really not much. So it's going to be completely dependent on your game. Now this is a 32 by 32 pixel game, so 330 is actually quite fast. So we're going to lower that. Let's cut it in half roughly. So let's do about 150, and let's lower the jump strength to, let's say, 400, and let's see how that looks. Okay, that speed's pretty good, and that jump is pretty good too. So what we're gonna do is, now that we have the jumping and the walking correct, we're gonna make the character basically mirror itself whether it's moving left or right, and then we're gonna set up the animations as well. But before we do that, I wanna give you one piece of advice when you're making a 2D platformer. So if you've ever tried to make a 2D platformer, you might have run into this, I don't know if you would call it a glitch, but there's an issue with really low resolution sprites like this one, 32 by 32 or even lower than that. Because they're so low resolution, the platform behavior is not pixel perfect. It tries to be, but it's not exactly pixel perfect. So what can potentially happen sometimes is the character will just slightly hover above the ground, and it kind of looks weird. So one way to fix this is if we go into the character and then we go and edit the collision polygon, what you can do is basically set it to be, so in this example I have it set to 28 on the y-axis, 28.9, and that 0.9 matters. So it's not a whole number. It's not like 30 or 28, it's 28.9 because it basically has a little bit of a gap from where the sprite actually starts to where the polygon actually detects it. What this will do is it'll basically make it so that if you're ever hovering, because the collision polygon is ever so slightly not aligned with the actual sprite itself, it'll basically make the sprite go through the ground slightly, which will basically hide that gap. And because it's such a small like pixel difference, it'll basically not be noticeable that it's actually going through the floor. And this is basically the best way to actually fix this problem. So if you've ever run into that issue, that is the best way to solve that problem. But with that said, let's get started on syncing up the animations. Before we can actually do that, we have to make sure that the controls are set up the way that we want them, because right now it uses the arrow keys, and unless you're left-handed, you probably don't want to have the arrow keys set up as the main controls when you're testing your game. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically add an event here, and we're going to add in the keyboard, and we are going to add in on key pressed. We're going to do W, and then we're going to just Control C, Control V this 3 times. We're going to back up and then set it to key down. And then we're just going to change the keys to be the ones that we want. So A for left and D for right. So that's pretty much our controls. And we're basically just going to tie these controls to the characters. So let me try to find the character here. All right, so we got that here. And then we're gonna go look for the simulate control option, and we're gonna set this to jump. I'm gonna copy and paste this one onto these ones. And then we will set this to left and set this one to right. And then what we'll just do is we'll go into the character and we will turn off default controls in the platform behavior. So now if we go and play it, he should move with the WASD, or in this case, WAD. So let's close that off. So that's good now. And now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna mirror the character based on which direction he's going, essentially. So let's do that. So what we're gonna do to do that is we're going to basically Control C and Control V these two. We're gonna remove that. You can do it on the same one, but I like to keep it, organized. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go look for our sprite and then set mirrored if he's going right, basically. So, or actually, if he's going right, we're gonna have it not mirrored. So let's just bring that over here and then copy and paste that onto here. And then when he's going left, we're gonna set him to be mirrored. So now that that's set up, it looks pretty good. One thing I would suggest you do is copy and paste this again. And we're actually going to change this if you just press the button, basically, just in case it doesn't register the key being held. So we're going to change it to being pressed. So that should fix any issues with that, basically. And we can test this and it should just work, basically. So as you can see here, there's no issues with the movement. It all works really well. It works while he's jumping. Everything is all good. If you just press it, it does the same thing. So that looks good. Okay, so now we're just basically gonna tie the animations to the movement. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna set up one event. It's gonna be pretty simple. We're just going to Control C this and then Control V it down here. We're going to get rid of that. We are going to go into the player. We're gonna go look for our player sprite and we're gonna check if he's moving. And then we're gonna check if he is on the floor, because you don't want it to conflict with when he's jumping. You want there to play a different animation. You want it to play a different animation for when he's jumping. So if you don't add this in here, it might create a conflict. So we're going to check if the player is on the floor. And then what we're going to do is an extra little thing you can do is you can check if the player is by a wall on their left or right, and you're going to invert that. And this will basically prevent the player from basically walking up against the wall. You want the player to basically stop playing the animation when he's against the wall and sort of default to his idle animation. That'll make it work a lot better, essentially. So we're going to check if he has a wall on his left and if he has a wall on his right, and we're going to invert both of those. So basically saying he'll only be able to play the animation if he doesn't have a wall on his right or left. So then we're going to get rid of this. We're going to play the animation and we're going to set the animation to walk, and that should be pretty good. Let's test it. And there you go. He's moving really nicely. Everything's good. And you can tweak the animation speed or the speed of the character if you feel like it doesn't really fit, if they don't line up. But I'm just going to leave it how it is because this is just a tutorial, but feel free to tweak it for your game. Now, one thing you might notice, he is still walking. He's still playing the animation if he's not moving. So now we're going to set up the idle animation. So for that, what we're going to do is we're basically going to duplicate this and we are going to change a couple things. So let's just change what it's going to animate. We're going to change the animation to idle. We are going to invert the moving. So it's just going to check, is he not moving? We're going to get rid of these wall things because we actually want him to play his idle animation when he's by a wall. And we want to make sure that he only plays it if he's on the floor. So that actually should fix that for the most part. So he's idling at the start and then we walk and then he goes back to idling. So that works really good. So that's set up. And the last thing we're going to do for today's video is we're going to set up the jumping animation. So for jumping, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this again and we're going to change the animation to jump. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check that the character is not on the floor. So he can't be playing this when he's on the floor. We're going to delete this one and we're going to do another check. So we'll just look for the sprite and we're going to set it to on jump, basically. So on jump and he's not on the floor, play this basically. And that should pretty much work. So let's try that. And yeah, that pretty much works. So that is a character fully moving around, jumping, idling, and walking, all animations set up. But that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, follow the light.